You're probably training the death move into your swing every time you practice. If you're trying to shift your pressure throughout the swing in order to maximize the ground reaction forces, the likelihood is you're creating far more chaos than control. The current trend of shifting around to maximize speed is making you worse, not better. Today, with the help of the pressure plate from whygolf, I'll show you exactly how you should be practicing to not only maximize your speed, but to improve the quality and the consistency of your contact as well. So I want to ask you a question. If I'm trying to control the low point of my swing, the contact point on the ground that this club hits every time I swing around my body, does it make sense to shift my weight back and forward in an attempt to create maximum power? I'll ask you that question and you can ponder on the answer for a second. But if I wanted the bottom of my golf swing to be as predictable as possible, moving back and forth doesn't compute in my mind. It makes things much more chaotic, much more problematic, more difficult for you to time. You're increasing the variables in your swing in an attempt to potentially add more power. I wouldn't even say that shifting your weight does do that every single time. And even if you did swing slightly faster, the amount of mishits that you'd start to make on the club face would render any additional speed that you did manage to achieve useless. So let's put those two theories to the test with the help of the pressure plate from whygolf. This training aid is designed with a curve at the bottom of it, allowing me to shift my weight, my pressure back and forward throughout the swing. The prescribed use of this pressure plate is to do just that, to swing back, push into the right foot, then push into the left foot and swing through. We can certainly do it that way, but how's that going to be in terms of consistency of contact, and what does that really do to the distance? I'm going to hit a few shots here, going through that same process of pushing into the right foot in the backswing, the left foot in the downswing, and seeing what we get. Pretty solid, felt pretty good off the club face. Decent shot, tight little push draw, landed on the target. No complaints at all. I've played this game for a very long time. I've hit lots and lots and lots of shots. The ability to time a movement like this definitely becomes easier the more skilled a golfer is. So you should also think about that when you're considering the answer to which one of these works best. Let's hit another one. Similarly, pretty well struck. Similar looking shot. That one just curved a little bit more to the left. I have to say that even as I swing on this thing, it feels a little unstable, but I've managed to make decent contact on those first two. Last one, push into the ground on the right on the way back, and then left on the way down. Another one that's pretty solid. The average distance of those three shots has come out at 148 yards. That's a 7-iron, it's not my 7-iron, but that's an average carry of 148 yards, which is a little bit down on what I might expect, but I was relatively happy with the contact and, to be honest, the dispersion of all three of those. But do we really need to do it that way? I felt like that was less controlled than if I'd stayed more steady and more centered. Let's try an alternative way to use this pressure plate. So let's recreate that same 3-ball test, but this time keeping the pressure plate pushed down on the lead side throughout the swing. So no shifting back and forward, keeping the weight on the front, both at setup, in the backswing, and through the downswing into the follow through. Felt like the best one I've hit so far today. Ball's come off the club face, very solid, felt extremely well struck and compressed. Push draw. Standard shot shape. That ball's gone 178 yards. I think that's an interesting discussion to have immediately here. The idea that we're being told that shifting around hits it further, and yet I hit one shot staying on my lead side and actually increase the distance. And that's because the increased distance comes from the improved contact. Let's do another one. Weight on the front. Felt good again. Should be pretty straight, little tight push, draw. Similar pattern, as I say, to my normal shot. That one felt very, very solid off the club again. 172 yards. So we're seeing that increase in distance from not shifting. That's the exact opposite of what you're being told. Weight on the front, don't let the board shift across, keep the weight on the lead side, and let's hit it. It could be the best strike of the three. Again, very similar shot shape, very predictable shot. Push, draw, that's landed almost next to the one before it, and the distance is very similar. That's going to hit 178 again. So that's an interesting discussion there to have around shifting the weight. You're supposed to get more distance by shifting around. That's not what happened in this test. You actually get more distance, in my experience, through more consistent contact. And that's easier to do if you keep the weight fixed in the same place. So there's some fairly strong evidence that keeping your weight fixed in the same place is beneficial, not just for more consistent contact, but also increased distance. Some of you might be looking at this screen right now and saying, well, that's all well and good for an iron shot, Rob, but what about the driver? Surely I have to shift my weight to hit the ball further with the driver. Well, let's do the same test and find out. So for this first batch of drivers, we're going to use the pressure plate as it's designed, which is to move into the right side in the backswing and then back to the left side in the downswing. This is how this training aid is marketed, and you see people trying to push back and forward into this thing to try and maximize ground reaction forces in a quest for more distance. We already saw that doesn't really happen with the iron. Let's hit a couple of drivers and see how we do. Feels quite unstable to move that much. There's a little bit of a toe strike there. Ball drew back to the fairway. It wasn't a horrible shot, but it certainly wasn't my best contact. That was certainly a better strike. More of a push to the right. That one didn't draw back. Again, for me, it feels very difficult to coordinate that movement and time the swing and make good contact. It's hard to pull all of those things together. Last one, to the right, then to the left. I think that was the best one of the three. Contact was still decent. Again, pushed it, didn't quite draw back. Very hard to time all of those pieces. At least that's how it feels for me. That's not the way that I would choose to do it. Distance there averaged around 250 yards, which again for me with the driver is probably a little bit on the low side. Let's try that same test now, keeping the weight on the left side throughout the entire swing. Okay, 3 balls with the driver, keeping the lead side, the left side of this pressure plate on the ground. Just a point on this, as I'm keeping my pressure forward, I'm doing so by having my hips forward. I'm not leaning my entire body to the front. That's an important part to note, but I'm definitely pushing more pressure and more weight into the front. Probably feel like 70% of my weight's on this front leg. I'm going to keep it there in the backswing and in the downswing. Let's see what we get. Felt pretty good. It's a little straighter than the shifting swing that I was making. Push, draw, back on the fairway. 275, I think that one's gone. Yeah, 275. So there's an immediate increase in the distance as well. And that feels not only more repeatable from a swing perspective, but more controllable from a directional perspective. Felt good, very solid contact, push, draw, right back down the middle of the fairway. So again, very happy with the outcome there as far as the curve and the directional component of that shot's concerned. That's gone 274 yards, 1 yard less than the shot before. So more distance and more accuracy. That one felt solid as well. Same shape, push, draw, coming back towards the center of the fairway, and 272. That's 3 drives that have gone in excess of 30 yards longer than the weight shift model. So maybe there's some question marks around moving your body backwards and forwards. Does it really do what people are trying to sell you that it does? I'm not so sure. I think you can be far more consistent and repeatable and more predictable with your strike and improve your distance just by keeping your weight more forward. So hopefully that helps to dispel some of the myths around weight shift in the golf swing. Many of you will believe that you're supposed to shift your weight back in the backswing, and yet the tour average weight shift in a golf swing is a mere 0.3 inches away from the target in the takeaway, and then 0.2 inches towards the target at the top of the swing, effectively meaning there's a minimal to zero weight shift. Focusing on shifting your weight away from the target in the backswing is really the death move that I mentioned at the beginning of this video. It's creating far more chaos than control. You're not able to time it, you're not able to repeat it, and it's making you a more erratic golfer. So one message I'd like you to take from this video is that just because you can measure something doesn't make it important. Focusing on the fact that you need to shift your weight in the backswing is not only a myth, it's making you worse. The pressure plate from whygolf is a great training aid used the way that I described today in order to help you keep your pivot more fixed on the front side and improve not only your contact but also your distance. You saw that in today's video. If you're interested in learning more about whygolf and the pressure plate, I'll put a link down in the description. If you'd like to watch further videos about keeping your weight forward and how that can improve not only your distance but also your contact, I have two for you. One is the wrench drill on how to keep your weight forward for your iron shots. And then I have the wrench driver edition, how you can transfer this same concept into the longest club in your bag.